I genuinely believed that a marriage could survive a fracture if the bone was set properly, so I forgave his cheating once. But when I came home early and saw it again, I realized that some bones don't heal. They just rot from the inside out until the limb falls off. I had spent the last 3 years playing the role of the benevolent, grace-filled wife, stitching our life back together with golden thread after his indiscretion with a paralegal named Amber. I swallowed my pride. I sat through the humiliating therapy sessions where I was told to create a welcoming space for his needs, and I rebuilt his reputation brick by brick. But as I stood in the foyer of our Georgian estate, listening to the floorboards creak upstairs in a rhythm that made my stomach turn to acid, I knew the renovation was over. I wasn't going to fix us this time. I was going to condemn the building and watch it crumble with him inside. Before I tell you how I turned a heartbreak into a tactical demolition that left my husband destitute and gasping for air, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and like this video. If you have ever given a second chance to someone who treated it like a free pass to hurt you again, you are among friends here. Pour a glass of something strong because the gloves are coming off. My name is Alara St. James, and at 53 years old, I am a woman who values precision. I own St. James Interiors, the premier luxury staging firm in Atlanta. When a multi-million-dollar mansion sits on the market too long, they call me. I walk into empty, cold spaces, and I fill them with warmth, elegance, and the illusion of a perfect life. I know exactly where to place a cashmere throw to make a room feel inviting, and I know exactly how to angle a mirror to hide a structural flaw. I have spent 30 years curating perfection, and my husband Marcus was supposed to be the centerpiece. Marcus was a commercial developer, handsome, charismatic, and possessing a smile that could convince a bank to loan him millions on a handshake. We were the power couple, the Black excellence poster children of our country club. We had 2 grown sons, a portfolio of properties, and a history that spanned 3 decades. When the first affair happened 3 years ago, it was sloppy. He left his phone unlocked. I saw the texts. It was a sordid, cheap thing with a girl young enough to be our niece. I packed his bags. I kicked him out, but he camped on my front porch for a week. He sent flowers every hour. He cried in front of our pastor. He swore it was a midlife crisis, a moment of insanity, brought on by the stress of the market crash. I took him back. I loved him. And frankly, I had invested too much in us to liquidate the asset over a stumble. We went to counseling. We prayed. We renewed our vows in a private ceremony in Tuscany. I thought we were stronger. I thought we were bulletproof. I was wrong. I wasn't bulletproof. I was just blindfolded. This past Thursday was supposed to be a triumph. I had just landed the contract to stage the penthouse collection at the new Ritz-Carlton residences. It was a 7-figure deal. I was scheduled to be in New York for 2 days to source art for the project. Marcus drove me to the airport at 6 a.m. "Go get him, Tiger," he said, kissing my hand. He looked at me with those deep brown eyes that I had fallen for in college. "I'm so proud of you, Alara. You're the engine that drives this family." "I'll miss you," I said, feeling a warmth in my chest. "I'll be back Saturday night. Maybe we can go to that new seafood place?" "It's a date," he promised. I boarded the plane. We sat on the tarmac for an hour, then 2. Finally, the pilot announced that due to a severe storm system over the Northeast, all flights to JFK were grounded until the following morning. I was annoyed, but also secretly relieved. I hate flying. I decided to reschedule the meetings for Zoom and head home. I didn't call Marcus. I wanted to surprise him. I wanted to walk in, tell him the trip was off, and maybe spend a rainy Thursday afternoon watching old movies in bed. It was a romantic notion, a stupid, naive romantic notion. I took a taxi home. The rain was lashing against the windows as we pulled up to the estate. The house looked imposing in the storm, the gray stone dark and slick. I noticed immediately that the garage door was closed. Marcus's Range Rover was inside. He was home. Good. I unlocked the front door quietly. I wanted to sneak up on him, maybe catch him in his office and cover his eyes. "Marcus?" I whispered into the cavernous foyer. Silence. The house was warm. The air conditioning was set to 72, just how he liked it. But there was a scent in the air. It wasn't my perfume. It wasn't the scent of the cleaning products we used. It was food. Heavy, rich, spicy food. "Gumbo?" I frowned. Marcus couldn't cook to save his life. If I was away, he ordered sushi or steak. He didn't make gumbo. I walked toward the kitchen. It was empty. But on the stove, a pot was simmering, and on the counter, there were 2 wine glasses. 2. My heart skipped a beat. A thud that echoed in my ears. Maybe his brother was over? Maybe a business partner? But the wine in the glasses wasn't the cheap Merlot he served guests. It was from the bottle of Opus One I had been saving for our 30th anniversary. The bottle sat empty on the island. Rage flared in my stomach. He opened the Opus One for a casual lunch. I walked toward the living room. Empty. Then I saw it. A pair of shoes at the bottom of the stairs. They weren't men's shoes. They were heels. Red, patent leather stilettos with the red bottoms. Christian Louboutin. I own Louboutins. I know what they cost. But I don't own those. Those were a size 6. I'm a size 9. The air left my lungs. I looked up the winding staircase. The house was silent, but it was a heavy silence. A silence that was hiding something. I took off my own shoes. I walked up the stairs, my stocking feet silent on the plush runner. The door to the master bedroom, our sanctuary, the room I had designed with hand-painted wallpaper and silk drapes, was closed. I stood outside the door. I could hear music, soft jazz, the playlist I made for us. And then I heard a voice. You really think she suspects nothing? It was a woman's voice, sultry, confident, young. Alara? Marcus's voice answered. He sounded relaxed, smug. Alara's a workhorse, babe. She's so focused on her little decorating business, she doesn't see what's right in front of her. She thinks I'm the reformed sinner. It's perfect. Her little decorating business? The woman laughed. Doesn't that business pay for this house? Technically, Marcus chuckled. But I manage the assets. And once the offshore transfer is complete next month, well, let's just say her business will be the least of my concerns. We'll be in Mallorca. My knees almost gave out. I had to lean against the wall to keep from sliding to the floor. He wasn't just cheating. He was embezzling. He was planning to leave. He was planning to steal my life. Mallorca, the woman purred. I look good in Spanish sun. You look good in anything, Vanessa. Vanessa. I knew that name. Vanessa King. Our financial advisor. The woman who managed our investment portfolio. The woman I had invited to Thanksgiving dinner last year because she was new to the city and lonely. The woman who had held my hand and prayed with me when my mother was sick. The betrayal was so absolute, so comprehensive, that it transcended anger. It became ice. I reached for the doorknob. My hand hovered there. If I opened the door now, what would happen? There would be screaming. There would be denials. Marcus would try to gaslight me. He would say I misunderstood. He would claim they were discussing business. Or worse, he would admit it, laugh in my face, and leave. And if he left now, before I knew where the money was, before I knew what offshore transfer he was talking about, I would lose everything. He had access to all our accounts. He had the passwords. He had the legal power of attorney we signed years ago. If I confronted him now, I would win the moral victory, but I would lose the war. I pulled my hand back. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Not again. I had cried enough 3 years ago to fill a reservoir. I needed evidence. I needed leverage. And I needed to secure my assets before he moved them to Mallorca. I stepped back from the door. I pulled out my phone. I set it to silent. I knelt down by the crack beneath the door. I hit record on the video camera. I couldn't see them, but I could hear them clearly. Pour me another glass, Vanessa said. This wine is exquisite. She has good taste. She has expensive taste, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. But don't worry, soon, all that taste will be funding our retirement. When do you execute the trade? Friday, Marcus said. When she's back from New York. I need her signature on one last document, the refinancing on the commercial building. I told her it was for tax purposes. Once she signs that, the equity is liquid, and I wire it to the shell company. You're bad, Marcus? I'm smart, Vanessa. There's a difference. I recorded for 3 minutes. I got the plan. I got the timeline. Friday. He needed my signature on Friday. That gave me 24 hours. I stood up. My legs were shaking, but my mind was razor sharp. I crept back down the stairs. I picked up my shoes. I picked up my suitcase. I walked to the kitchen. I looked at the gumbo pot. I turned off the burner. I didn't want the house to burn down. Not yet. I walked to the front door. I opened it and stepped out into the rain. I closed the door softly behind me. I walked down the driveway to the street where the taxi had dropped me off. I was drenched. My suit was ruined. My hair was plastered to my skull, but I didn't feel the cold. I felt the heat of a nuclear reactor melting down in my chest. I pulled out my phone and called a car. Where to? The app asked. I typed in the address of the only person in Atlanta I trusted with a body count. My divorce lawyer from 3 years ago, the one I had fired when I decided to reconcile. The one who had told me, Alara, he will do it again. And when he does, make sure you have the gun. I got into the Uber. The driver looked at me, a soaking wet middle-aged black woman in a Chanel suit, clutching a phone like a weapon. You okay, ma'am? He asked. I'm fantastic, I said, staring at the rain-streaked window. I just found out I'm about to come into a lot of money. Oh, you win the lottery? Something like that, I whispered. I'm about to liquidate a liability. I didn't go to a hotel. I went to my office. My staff was gone for the day. I let myself in. I went to my private safe in the back. I pulled out the file I had started 3 years ago, the Doomsday File. It had copies of our tax returns, our deed, and Marcus's social security number. I sat at my desk. Marcus wanted my signature on Friday to refinance the commercial building, the building I bought with my inheritance. He thought I was the workhorse. He thought I was the fool. I opened my laptop. I wasn't going to wait for Friday. If he wanted a signature, I would give him one, but it wouldn't be on a refinancing agreement. I logged into the internal server of St. James Interiors. I pulled up the client list. I pulled up the vendor contracts, and then I logged into our joint bank account. The balance was high, too high. He had already liquidated some stocks. It was sitting there waiting to be moved. $1.5 million. I looked at the transfer button. If I moved it now, he would get an alert. He would know I was onto him. He would run. And if he ran, he might get away with the hidden assets I didn't know about yet. No, I had to be smarter. I had to let him think he was winning until the trap snapped shut. I needed to intercept the offshore transfer. I needed to find out where the shell company was. Vanessa King, I typed into the search bar. I needed to know everything about her, not just that she was my financial advisor. I needed to know her weakness. Her profile popped up. Vanessa King, Senior Wealth Manager. And there in her bio was a little detail Marcus probably ignored. Vanessa serves on the board of the Atlanta Charity for At-Risk Youth. Charity. Reputation. I smiled. Then I saw something else, a photo on her Facebook page from a week ago. She was wearing a ring, a diamond engagement ring. Caption, he proposed. Secret romance finally going public soon. Shash future misses. He had proposed to her. While married to me, he bought that ring with my money. I took a screenshot. I wasn't just going to divorce Marcus. I was going to destroy him. I was going to ruin his credit, his reputation, and his freedom. But first, I had to survive the night. I had to go back to that house. I had to pretend I had never come home. I had to let him think I was stuck in New York until tomorrow. I booked a room at the Four Seasons under my maiden name. I would stay there tonight. Tomorrow, I would arrive home from the airport. I would kiss him. I would smile. And then I would ask him to sign a little paper of my own. The Four Seasons suite was a sanctuary of neutral tones and high thread count silence, but I didn't sleep. I spent the night staring at the ceiling, reconstructing my life like a crime scene. I mentally walked through every conversation Marcus and I had in the last 6 months, looking for the cracks I had ignored. The sudden interest in diversifying our portfolio, the late-night calls with the London office, the way he had encouraged me to take on the Ritz-Carlton project because you deserve to focus on your art, Alara. Let me handle the boring money stuff. He wasn't supporting my career. He was distracting me while he robbed the vault. By 6 a.m., I was up. I showered, scrubbing my skin until it was pink, washing away the phantom feeling of being a fool. I dressed in a cream-colored cashmere sweater and tailored trousers, soft, approachable, the uniform of the loving wife returning from a canceled trip. I applied my makeup with the precision of a geisha preparing for war, foundation to cover the lack of sleep, blush to feign happiness, and waterproof mascara because I was done crying but I wasn't done sweating. I called a car to take me to the airport first. I needed the arrival to be authentic. I walked into the terminal, bought a coffee, waited 10 minutes, and then walked back out to the taxi stand. Home, please, I told the driver. As we pulled up to the estate, the rain had stopped, leaving the world scrubbed clean and gray. The garage door was closed. The red Audi, Nia's car? No, wait, that was the previous story. Vanessa's car was gone. The house looked innocent. I unlocked the front door and stepped into the foyer. The smell hit me instantly. It wasn't gumbo anymore. It was bleach. Sharp, chemical, industrial strength bleach. He had cleaned. He had tried to scrub away the scent of his betrayal, but to me, the smell of bleach was just the scent of guilt. Marcus? I called out, injecting a weary sweetness into my voice. I'm home. Alara? He came jogging down the stairs. He was wearing a crisp white dress shirt and dark jeans. He looked fresh, rested, and painfully handsome. He had that golden boy smile plastered on his face, the one that had charmed investors and his wife for 30 years. Baby! He rushed to me, sweeping me into a hug. He lifted me off my feet. You're back. I tracked the flights. I saw everything was grounded. I was so worried you were stuck in a terminal sleeping on a bench. I let him hold me. I rested my chin on his shoulder, staring at the spot on the stairs where I had seen the red-bottomed shoes yesterday. It was a nightmare, I lied, patting his back. I just wanted to be home. He put me down and kissed me. I tasted toothpaste and coffee. I missed you, he said, looking into my eyes with a sincerity that was terrifying. He was a sociopath. He could look me in the eye, profess his love, and plan my financial execution in the same breath. I missed you too, I said. And I smell? Cleaning supplies? Did you scrub the floors? He didn't flinch. I spilled some red wine last night. Clumsy me. I wanted to get it up before it set. You know how you are about the rugs. Good thinking, I said. Where's the gumbo? I thought I smelled spices when I walked in. A tiny flicker of panic in his eyes. Just a micro expression. Oh, I ordered takeout. Must be the neighbors. Come on, let me get you some breakfast. You look exhausted. He led me to the kitchen. The counter was spotless. The Opus One bottle was gone. The 2 glasses were gone. So, he said, pouring me a cup of coffee, since you're back early, we can have a relaxing day. But there is one small thing. Here it comes. What is it? I asked, blowing on the steam. The refinancing papers, he said, leaning against the island, crossing his ankles casually. The notary is coming by at noon. I know you're tired, but if we sign today, we lock in that 4% rate before the Fed hikes it again on Monday. It saves us about $10,000 a month in interest on the commercial building. $10,000 a month. A logical number. A business decision. Of course, I said. I trust you, Marcus. Where are the papers? I should review them. Oh, you don't need to bore yourself with the legalese, he laughed lightly. It's standard boilerplate. I've already redlined it. Just need your signature on the authorization page. I always review the papers, Marcus, I said, keeping my voice light but firm. It's my name on the deed, too. Bring them to my office after breakfast. His jaw tightened just slightly. Sure. Whatever you want, babe. I just want to save you the headache. You're too good to me, I smiled. I took my coffee and went to my home office, a sun-drenched room off the library where I kept my fabric swatches and blueprints. I closed the door. My hands started to shake the moment the latch clicked. I put the coffee down. I needed help. I knew design, I knew real estate staging, but I didn't know forensic accounting or how to stop an international wire transfer. I pulled out my phone and dialed the number I had saved 3 years ago. Jocelyn Banks, a voice answered. It sounded like gravel crunching under tires. Jocelyn was the divorce attorney I had hired during the Amber incident. She was expensive, ruthless, and she hated Marcus with a professional passion. Jocelyn, I said. It's Alara St. James. Alara, she said. No pleasantries. Did he do it again? Worse, I said. He's doing it again, but this time he's stealing the commercial building. He has a mistress named Vanessa King who is also our financial advisor. They are planning to move the equity offshore to a shell company tomorrow. He wants me to sign a refinancing agreement at noon. Do not sign anything, Jocelyn barked. I have to, I said. If I don't sign, he knows I know. He runs. He has power of attorney on the liquid accounts. He'll drain the cash before I can file an injunction. I need to trap him. Okay, Jocelyn said, her voice shifting into war mode. You're playing 4D chess. I like it. Send me a picture of the document he wants you to sign. He hasn't given it to me yet. Go get it. Tell him you want to read it while you drink your coffee. Send me photos of every page, especially the wire instructions. And then what? Then, Jocelyn said, we pull a switch. I hung up. I took a deep breath. I walked out of my office and found Marcus in the living room. He was on his phone, typing furiously. When he saw me, he locked the screen and shoved it in his pocket. The papers? I asked, holding out my hand. Right here, he said, handing me a thick folder. Like I said, standard stuff. Sign on the tabs. I'll bring them back in an hour, I said. I took the folder back to my office. I locked the door. I opened the folder. It was thick, intimidating legal jargon. Refinancing agreement. Lender First National. Borrower, St. James Holdings. It looked legitimate, but then I flipped to the disbursement page, the page that tells the bank where to send the money. Usually in a refinance, the money pays off the old mortgage and the rest goes into the borrower's operating account. Here, the payoff amount was listed as the full value of the property, $4.2 million. And the recipient account wasn't First National. It wasn't St. James Holdings. It was Mallorca Ventures, LLC. Bank, Banco de Andorra. He wasn't refinancing. He was taking out a hard money loan against the full equity of the building, essentially selling the debt to a private lender and wiring the cash to Andorra. He was cashing out. He was burning the building down financially and leaving me with the debt. I took pictures of every page and emailed them to Jocelyn. My phone rang 2 minutes later. I see it, Jocelyn said. He's clever. It's structured as a bridge loan for capital improvements, but the payout is directed to a third party. If you sign this, you owe the lender $4.2 million, and Marcus walks away with the cash. So what do? Do you have a printer? Jocelyn asked. Yes, a high-end laser printer for my design proofs. Good. Does it have the same paperweight as the document? I felt the paper. Standard 24-pound bond. Yes. I am emailing you a PDF right now, Jocelyn said. It is going to look exactly like the signature page of that document. Same font, same layout, same header, but the text block above the signature line is different. Different how? Instead of authorizing the loan disbursement to Mallorca Ventures, Jocelyn said, this page authorizes the transfer of all managing member interests and voting rights in St. James Holdings to Alara St. James, effectively removing Marcus as a signatory on the company accounts. It also revokes his power of attorney. A coup, I whispered. A hostile takeover, Jocelyn corrected. You swap the pages, you sign it, you hand it back to him. He won't read it, he thinks he wrote it. He'll send it to the lender will file it. And the moment it's filed, you own everything. And the loan? It won't go through because the lender will see the internal conflict of interest on the signature page regarding the destination funds versus the new controlling member. It stops the money? It freezes the money, Jocelyn said, and it gives us the deed. I checked my email. The PDF arrived. I printed it. I placed it side by side with Marcus's page. They were identical visually. The only difference was the paragraph of text in the middle, the text no one ever reads. I carefully unstapled the original document. I pulled out the poison page. I slid in my antidote. I restapled it, making sure to align the holes perfectly. I signed my name with a flourish. I sat back. My heart was pounding so hard I felt lightheaded. I looked at the clock, 11:45 a.m. The notary was due in 15 minutes. I walked out of the office holding the folder. Marcus was in the kitchen drinking a protein shake. He looked up, his eyes scanning the folder. All done? He asked casually. All done, I said, placing the folder on the counter. You were right. It was boring. He let out a breath he had been holding. Great. That's great, honey. This is going to be huge for us. The tax savings alone will pay for that vacation we talked about. Mallorca? I asked. He froze. His protein shake stopped halfway to his mouth. What? I said, maybe we should go to Mallorca, I said, smiling innocently. I saw a travel show about it. It looks beautiful. He laughed, a nervous, jerky sound. Yeah, maybe. Or Tuscany again. We love Tuscany. The doorbell rang. That's the notary, Marcus said, grabbing the folder. I'll handle it. You relax. He walked to the door. I stood in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the granite island. I watched from the hallway as the notary, a middle-aged woman with a stamp, sat up on the dining room table. Marcus handed her the folder. She flipped to the back page, the page I had swapped. Mrs. St. James needs to be present to acknowledge her signature, the notary said. Alara, Marcus called out. Just need you to wave hello. I walked into the dining room. Is this your signature, ma'am? the notary asked, pointing to the line. I looked at the paper. I looked at Marcus, who was practically vibrating with anticipation. He was watching the pen, not the text. Yes, I said clearly. That is my signature, and I execute this document of my own free will. Thump, the notary stamped it. And you, mister, she said. Marcus signed quickly, barely looking. Thump. It was done. Marcus closed the folder. He handed it to the notary. I'll have my courier run this over to the bank immediately. Thank you, he said to her. He walked her to the door. When he turned back to me, his smile was blinding. It was the smile of a man who thinks he just got away with murder. We did it, he said, hugging me. We secured the future. Yes, I said, letting him hold me, feeling the coldness spreading through my veins. We certainly did. I have to run into the office for a few hours, he said, checking his watch. Wrap up some loose ends before the weekend, but dinner tonight? That seafood place? I wouldn't miss it, I said. Great. I love you, Alara. Drive safe, Marcus. He grabbed his keys in the folder, which contained his them, though he didn't know it yet, and walked out the door. I watched his Range Rover disappear down the driveway. I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. I went back to my office. I called Jocelyn. He signed it. It's on the way to the bank. Perfect, Jocelyn said. I'm filing the digital copy you sent me with the Secretary of State immediately. By the time he gets to his office, he won't be authorized to buy a stapler, let alone wire millions. What about Vanessa? I asked. I did some digging on Miss King, Jocelyn said. Turns out she's not just your financial advisor. She's running a side hustle. She's been flagging accounts for high-risk investment and skimming the fees. It's small, but it's illegal, and she's doing it on her company server. So we can get her fired? Better, Jocelyn said. We can get her indicted, but we need access to her laptop. I thought about the conversation I overheard. Vanessa was clever, that she wouldn't leave her laptop lying around. But then I remembered something. She's coming to dinner tonight, I said. What? Marcus is taking me to dinner. He thinks he's celebrating, but I'm going to text Vanessa from his phone. I know his passcode. I'm going to invite her. I'm going to tell her that I know everything and that we want to celebrate our arrangement as a throuple. Alara, Jocelyn warned. That's risky. No, I said, it's bait. Vanessa is greedy if she thinks I'm okay with it. If she thinks she gets the man and the money without the fight, she'll come. She's arrogant. And when she gets there? When she gets there, I said, looking at the invitation to the Penthouse Collection staging event I had on my desk, I'm going to introduce her to my new favorite accessory, which is a wire, I said. I'm going to record her confessing to the embezzlement, and then I'm going to hand it to the SEC. You want to wear a wire to dinner? I'm a stager, Jocelyn, I said, standing up and smoothing my cashmere sweater. I know how to set a scene. Tonight, I'm staging a tragedy. I hung up. I walked to the master bedroom. I opened Marcus's nightstand drawer. There was his spare phone, the burner he thought I didn't know about. I had found it 3 years ago and never told him. I turned it on. It had 4% battery. I opened the messages. To Vanessa King, from Marcus text, change of plans. Alara knows. She's surprisingly cool with it. She wants to meet you. Dinner tonight. The Seahorse, 8 p.m. Bring the laptop. We can transfer the funds right there at the table. She wants to watch. I hit send. Then I deleted the message. I put the phone back. I walked into my closet. I pushed aside the sensible suits and the beige sweaters. I reached into the back to the garment bag I hadn't opened in years. I pulled out a dress. Red, silk, low cut, a dress that said, I am the mistress now. Tonight, Marcus wasn't going to dinner with his wife. He was going to dinner with his nemesis. And Vanessa? She was coming to dinner with the FBI. She just didn't know it yet. The red silk dress fit like a second skin, draped over curves that I had maintained with Pilates and discipline for 30 years. It was a dress designed for a mistress, not a wife, low in the back, high in the slit, and screaming for attention. I paired it with the diamond tennis bracelet Marcus had given me for our 10th anniversary, a reminder of a decade that was actually happy, or at least successfully simulated. I taped the small, flat recording device Jocelyn had couriered over to the underside of the table's centerpiece before I even sat down. I had arrived 30 minutes early to tip the maitre d' $100 for the most secluded, acoustically favorable booth in the back. When Marcus arrived, he looked like he had seen a ghost. He was expecting the beige sweater-wearing, forgiving wife he had left at home. Instead, he found a woman who looked like she was about to headline a cabaret in hell. Alara? He blinked, sliding into the booth opposite me. You look incredible. I haven't seen that dress in years. I thought we were celebrating, I said, my voice smooth as warm honey. New beginnings, right? The refinancing. The future. Right. He loosened his tie, a bead of sweat already forming on his temple. The future? You ordered wine? A bottle of Camus, I said, and I took the liberty of ordering appetizers, oysters. They say they're an aphrodisiac. Marcus laughed nervously. You're in a mood tonight. I am, I smiled, swirling the deep red wine in my glass. I feel liberated, Marcus. Truly. We made small talk for 10 minutes. He talked about the market. I talked about the Ritz-Carlton project. He was checking his watch every 30 seconds, clearly anxious to get back to his late-night office work, which I knew meant calling Vanessa to celebrate the loan approval he thought went through. At 8:05 p.m., the atmosphere shifted. I saw her walk in. Vanessa King didn't look like a financial advisor. Tonight, she looked like a predator. She was wearing a tight black dress with cutouts that showed off her gym-owned abs, carrying a sleek laptop bag that looked out of place with her evening wear. She scanned the room, her eyes landing on us. A smirk curled her lips. Marcus followed my gaze. He turned around. The blood drained from his face so violently, I thought he might faint. His fork clattered onto his plate. Vanessa, he whispered, his voice strangling in his throat. What is she doing here? I invited her, I said calmly, spearing an oyster. You? What? Marcus looked at me, terror widening his eyes. Hello, lovers. Vanessa purred, sliding into the booth next to Marcus. She didn't look at him. She looked at me, assessing the competition. She clearly thought she had won. After all, the text I sent from Marcus's phone said I was cool with it. Alara, Vanessa nodded, placing her laptop bag on the table. Bold choice with the red. I like it. It shows acceptance. Marcus looked between us, his head swiveling like a spectator at a tennis match. What is going on? Vanessa, why are you here? You texted me, baby. Vanessa laughed, resting a manicured hand on his arm. Remember? Alara knows. She wants to watch the transfer. She wants to be part of the arrangement. Marcus pulled his arm away as if he'd been burned. I never sent that text. Oh, stop being shy, I interrupted, leaning forward. Marcus, the jig is up. I know about the affair. I know about Mallorca. I know about the shell company. Marcus froze. He looked ready to bolt. Sit down, I ordered, my voice dropping the honey coating and revealing the steel underneath. If you leave, I scream, and I scream loud enough to make the 6 o'clock news. He sank back into the leather seat. Now, I continued, turning my gaze to Vanessa. I'm a pragmatist, Vanessa. Marcus is a depreciating asset, but the money is real. If you two want to run off into the sunset, fine. But I want my cut. I want to ensure my settlement is secure before you wire the equity to Andorra. Vanessa's eyes lit up. Greed. It was always the weakness. She thought I was negotiating a buyout. That's reasonable, Vanessa said, opening her laptop. We can structure it as a consulting fee to avoid the gift tax. Smart move, Alara. I always said you had a good head for business. I do, I said. So let's see it. The account, the shell company. How are you moving $4.2 million without the feds flagging it? Marcus was silent, staring at me with a mixture of confusion and horror. He knew me better than Vanessa did. He knew I didn't negotiate with terrorists. But he was too paralyzed to speak. It's simple, Vanessa bragged, logging into a secure portal on her screen. I have a backdoor into the banking system. I flagged the transaction as an international real estate acquisition for a commercial client. I've done it before. Skimmed a little off the top of the firm's whale accounts to pad the pot. Nobody notices a few basis points missing when the market is volatile. So you're embezzling from other clients too? I asked, feigning admiration. Not just us. Everyone does it, Vanessa shrugged. The system is rigged. I just rigged it in my favor. Marcus and I are going to live like kings. And the shell company? I pressed. Mallorca Ventures? Registered in my name, Vanessa beamed. Untraceable. Perfect, I said. Do it. Transfer the funds. Marcus finally found his voice. Alara, don't. You don't know what you're doing. I know exactly what I'm doing, darling, I said. I'm watching you achieve your dream. Vanessa hit a few keys. Okay, the loan from First National funded this afternoon. The equity is sitting in the St. James Holdings operating account. $4.2 million. I'm queuing the wire to Endora now. She turned the laptop so we could see. The numbers were dizzying. Authorizing, she muttered, typing in a code. And send. She hit the enter key with a theatrical flourish. We watched the screen, a spinning wheel, and then a large red box popped up. Transaction failed. Authorization revoked. User credentials invalid. Vanessa frowned. What? That's a glitch. She typed it again. She hit enter. Transaction failed. Account frozen by managing member. What is this? Vanessa snapped, looking at Marcus. Did you change the password? I didn't touch anything, Marcus yelled, sweat pouring down his face. Try again, I suggested helpfully. Vanessa frantically typed. She tried to access the back end. Access denied. She looked up, her face pale. I'm locked out. The system says... It says Marcus isn't the managing member anymore. Slowly, both of them turned to look at me. I took a sip of my wine. I savored the bouquet, oak, berries, and victory. You see, I said softly, that paperwork you signed this morning, Marcus? The boring legalese you didn't read? Marcus's mouth opened. No, you didn't. I swapped the signature page, I said. You didn't sign a loan authorization from Mallorca Ventures. You signed a resolution transferring 100% of your voting rights and managing interest in St. James Holdings to me, and you revoked your own power of attorney. You tricked me, Marcus shouted, standing up. Sit down. I slammed my hand on the table. He sat. I didn't trick you, I said. I outmaneuvered you. You signed it. A notary witnessed it. It was filed with the Secretary of State at 2 p.m. I own the company, Marcus. I own the building, and I own the bank account. I turned to Vanessa. She looked like she was trying to calculate the distance to the exit. And you, Vanessa, I said. Thank you for the demonstration. Skimming off the top, backdoor into the banking system. That was very educational. You can't prove I said that, Vanessa hissed, slamming her laptop shut. It's hearsay. I reached into the centerpiece, a lush arrangement of hydrangeas, and pulled out the small black recording device. The red light was still blinking steadily. Georgia is a one-party consent state for audio recording. I lied. Actually, I wasn't sure if it was, but they didn't know that. And honestly, the SEC doesn't care about consent laws when investigating federal wire fraud. And I think the FBI will find your confession very illuminating. Especially when paired with the forensic audit I'm sure they'll run on your laptop. Vanessa grabbed her bag. She stood up so fast her chair tipped over. I'm leaving, she said, her voice trembling. Marcus, you're on your own. You didn't tell me she was crazy. She's not crazy, Marcus yelled at her. She's smart. I told you we should have left yesterday. Sit down, Vanessa, I said. The valet takes a while. I'm walking, she spat. She ran toward the door, her heels clicking frantically on the floor. I watched her go. I didn't stop her. She wasn't the target. She was just collateral damage. Now it was just me and Marcus. The silence at the table was heavy. The air felt thin. Marcus looked at me. He looked at the red dress. He looked at the recorder in my hand. You took the company, he whispered. I saved the company, I corrected. You were going to liquidate it for a beach condo. I protected the asset. But that building is my legacy, he choked out. My father started that business. And his son tried to sell it for a mistress, I said. You lost your legacy the minute you unzipped your pants, Marcus. So what now, he asked, tears pooling in his eyes. You divorce me? You take half? I can rebuild. I'm a good developer. Divorce? I shook my head. Marcus, honey, divorce is for people who want to move on. I don't want to move on. I want to settle the score. What do you mean? I said, leaning in close, that I own the company now, which means I own the debt. And do you know what else I found in the doomsday file? He stared at me, unblinking. I found the indemnity clause in our prenuptial agreement. I lied. We didn't have a prenup, but he didn't remember. The one that says any debt incurred by one party for illicit activities becomes the sole responsibility of that party. We don't have a prenup, he whispered. We do now, I said. Because the document you signed today, it had a rider, a personal guarantee. You personally guaranteed the loan you thought you were taking out, but since the loan didn't go through, you just personally guaranteed nothing. But you did admit to attempted fraud on tape. I stood up. Here is what is going to happen, Marcus. You are going to go home. You are going to pack a bag, a small bag. Because I changed the locks on the estate an hour ago. You kicked me out? I evicted you, I said. The house is in my name now, too. Another form you signed without reading. This was a bluff, but a good one. Where am I supposed to go? I hear the Ritz-Carlton has nice rooms, I said. Oh, wait, I'm staging the penthouse there. You can't afford it. I threw a $20 bill on the table. Try the Motel 6 off the highway, I said. And Marcus, don't try to access the joint checking. I drained it this morning. You have exactly $42. Marcus sat there, a broken man in a bespoke suit. He looked at the money. He looked at me. I loved you, he said. No, I said, picking up my purse. You loved that I made you look good. You loved the porcelain doll on the shelf. But you dropped the doll, Marcus, and you cut yourself on the shards. I turned and walked away. I walked out of the restaurant, the red silk dress flowing around me like armor. I felt the eyes of the patrons on me. They saw a confident, beautiful woman leaving a sad man at a table. They didn't know I had just committed the perfect crime. But I wasn't done. I got into my waiting car. Where to, ma'am? The police station, I said. Is there a problem? No. I touched the recorder in my purse. I just need to drop off some evidence. An anonymous tip about a financial advisor embezzling funds. I wasn't going to let Vanessa get away. I was going to make sure she never worked in finance again. And Marcus? Part 4 wasn't about money. Part 4 was about his freedom. Because in my doomsday file, I had one more document. A document about a tax shell in the Caymans that Marcus had set up 5 years ago. The one he used to pay off the first mistress. The IRS didn't know about that one. Yet. The lobby of the Federal Bureau of Investigation's Atlanta field office is surprisingly mundane. It looks less like the high-tech nerve centers you see in movies, and more like a DMV with better security protocols and tighter jawlines. I sat on a hard plastic chair, my red silk dress hidden beneath a sensible beige trench coat I kept in the trunk of my car for emergencies. In my hand, I clutched the digital recorder. It felt warm, vibrating with the latent heat of the confession I had captured just an hour ago. Mrs. St. James? A woman in a charcoal suit stepped through the security doors. She looked tired, smart, and utterly unamused. I'm Agent Miller. You said you have information regarding wire fraud? I do, I said, standing up. I didn't shake her hand. I handed her the recorder. I have a confession from a senior wealth manager at King & Associates, admitting to skimming client funds and bypassing federal banking regulations to launder money offshore. Her name is Vanessa King. Agent Miller raised an eyebrow. And how did you obtain this? She invited me to dinner. I lied smoothly. She wanted to brag. She didn't realize I have a memory for details and a penchant for recording my memoirs. And your husband? Miller asked, looking at the preliminary report I had filed online in the car. Marcus St. James? He was present, I said, my voice catching just enough to sell the grieving wife narrative. He seemed to be under her influence. I believe he is a victim of coercion, but the financial records will speak for themselves. I wasn't protecting Marcus. I was positioning him. By painting him as the weak, coerced lover, I ensured the feds would look at him as a loose end, a witness to be squeezed, rather than the mastermind. And Marcus, being the coward he was, would crack under pressure. He would sing. He would implicate Vanessa to save himself, and in doing so, he would admit to his own complicity. It was a domino effect, and I had just pushed the first tile. I left the building feeling lighter. Vanessa was handled. The SEC and the FBI would freeze her assets by morning. Her career was over. But Marcus was still free. Broke, yes. Homeless, yes. But free. And a free Marcus was a dangerous Marcus. I drove back to my office, St. James Interiors. It was 11 p.m. The industrial park was deserted, the shadows long and sharp under the halogen streetlights. I parked my car around the back, in the loading bay, so it wouldn't be seen from the street. I went inside and locked the heavy steel doors behind me. I went to my office and poured myself a glass of water. My hands were finally starting to shake. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a cold, hard dread. I had destroyed my marriage. I had nuked my life. But I wasn't done. I opened the doomsday file again. There was one document I hadn't used yet. It was old, 5 years old. It was a photocopy of a bank statement from the Cayman Islands. Account holder M. St. James. Balance $250,000. This wasn't the Mallorca money. This was the Amber money. 5 years ago, when Marcus had his first affair with the paralegal, Amber, he hadn't just bought her dinner, he had paid her off. When I caught him, he swore he had cut ties cleanly. He lied. Amber had threatened to go public with photos that would have ruined his reputation with the church and his investors. So Marcus had panicked. He had funneled $250,000, money siphoned from a construction loan for a project that went over budget, into a Cayman account, and then wired it to Amber as a consulting fee to buy her silence. He thought that secret was buried. He didn't know that I monitored the shredding bin. I had pieced together the wire confirmation strip by strip, taped it to a piece of paper, and photocopied it. This document wasn't just proof of infidelity. It was proof of tax evasion and construction fraud. It was a felony that carried a mandatory minimum sentence. This was my golden parachute. If he tried to fight me for the company, if he tried to drag this divorce out, I would pull the ripcord and drop this on the IRS. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I knew who it was. "Hello, Marcus," I answered. "You locked me out." He was screaming. He sounded drunk or manic or both. "My key card doesn't work? The house locks are changed? I'm standing in the rain, Alara." "It's a beautiful night for a walk," I said. "I'm going to break the door down," he shouted. "I own half that house." "Actually," I said, putting the Cayman document on the desk in front of me, "according to the deed transfer you signed this morning, St. James Holdings owns half the house. And as the sole managing member of St. James Holdings, I have denied you entry. If you break the door, you're committing corporate espionage and burglary. Big Mike is inside. He has a taser and a very low tolerance for intruders." Marcus made a sound like a wounded animal. "Where am I supposed to go? I have $40, Alara. I can't even get a hotel." "Go to Amber," I said softly. The line went dead silent. "What?" he whispered. "Amber," I repeated. "The paralegal. The one you paid $250,000 to in 2019 using the funds from the West Side Lofts project." I don't know what you're talking about." "Cayman National Bank," I read. "Account number 88429U. Wire transfer dated August 12th. I have the receipt, Marcus. I have the photocopy." You kept that?" "I keep everything," I said. "I'm an archivist of your sins." "Alara, please," he was crying now, broken sobs. "If that gets out, that's tax fraud. That's prison." "Yes," I said, "it is." "What do you want?" he begged. "I gave you the company. I gave you the house. What more do you want?" "I want you to confess," I said. "Confess to who?" "To everyone," I said. "I want a signed affidavit admitting to the fraud with Vanessa. I want you to take the fall. Alone. You tell the feds that you coerced her. You tell them you stole the money. You clear the company's name so my assets don't get seized in the investigation. If I do that, I go to jail." "You're going to jail anyway, Marcus," I said. "The only question is for how long. If you cooperate, maybe you get 5 years. If I hand over the Cayman file, they add tax evasion and money laundering. That's 15 years. Do the math." He was silent for a long time. I could hear the rain falling on his end. "I need to think," he said. "You have 1 hour," I said. "I'm at the office. Come here. Alone, and we'll finish this." I hung up. I knew he would come. He had no choice. He was a rat in a maze, and I had closed off every exit except the one that led to the trap. I sat back and waited. 30 minutes later, I saw headlights sweep across the front windows of the warehouse. A car parked. Not his Range Rover, but a taxi. He got out. He looked like a ruin of a man. His expensive suit was soaked. His tie was gone. His hair plastered to his forehead. He walked to the front door and banged on the glass. I buzzed him in. He walked down the hallway to my office. He stood in the doorway, dripping wet, shivering. "You look terrible," I said. "You look expensive," he retorted, eyeing my red dress. "Sit down." He sat. He didn't look at me. He looked at the floor. "I wrote it," he said, pulling a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. "The confession. It says I set up the shell company. It says I tricked Vanessa. It says you knew nothing." He slid the paper across the desk. I picked it up. It was handwritten on hotel stationery. He must have swiped it from the lobby of the Ritz before they kicked him out. It was messy, but it was legally binding if witnessed. "Good," I said. "Sign it. Date it." He signed it. "Now," he said, looking up at me with dead eyes, "give me the Cayman file, and give me enough money to leave town. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again." "I can't give you the file, Marcus," I said. "We had a deal." "No," I said. I said you have 1 hour to confess. I never said I would give you the file. I said I wouldn't give it to the IRS. So give it to me. I can't, I said, opening my desk drawer, because I already mailed it. Marcus stood up, knocking his chair back. You what? I dropped it in the mailbox on the way here, I lied. Addressed to the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, anonymous tip. You lying. He lunged across the desk. I didn't flinch. I reached into the drawer and pulled out the one thing I had kept from my father, a military man. A Smith & Wesson .38 Special. I leveled it at his chest. Marcus froze. His hands were inches from my throat. Sit down, Marcus, I said. My hand didn't shake, not even a little. He slowly lowered his hands. He backed away, his eyes fixed on the gun. You wouldn't, he whispered. I forgave you once, I said. I took you back. I washed your clothes. I cooked your meals. I rebuilt your reputation. And you repaid me by trying to sell my legacy for a beach condo with a 25-year-old. Do not test me. He sat back down, defeated. Why? He asked. Why destroy me completely? You won. You have the company. Why send me to prison? Because you didn't just cheat on me, I said, my voice trembling with the first real emotion I had shown all night. You made me feel small. You made me feel like a placeholder. You treated me like furniture in a house you were planning to sell. And Marcus, I am not furniture. I am the architect. I looked at the clock. The police are on their way, I said. I triggered the silent alarm when you lunged at me. Alara, don't speak, I said. Just wait. We sat in silence for 5 minutes. The only sound was the hum of the servers and Marcus's jagged breathing. Then the sirens. Blue and red lights flashed against the office walls. They're here, I said. Marcus looked at the gun. He looked at the window. For a second, I thought he might try to run, but he didn't. He just slumped. I'm sorry, he whispered. No, you're not, I said. You're just broke. The police burst into the building. They found us in the office, me sitting calmly behind the desk, Marcus sitting with his head in his hands. Drop the weapon, ma'am, an officer shouted. I placed the gun on the desk and raised my hands. It's okay, officers, I said. I have a permit. This man broke in. He assaulted me, and I believe he is wanted for federal wire fraud. They cuffed him. As they dragged him out, he looked back at me. There was no love left in his eyes, only fear. I watched him go. I stood alone in my office. I picked up the confession he had written. I folded it and put it in my purse. I hadn't actually mailed the Cayman file. That was a bluff. I still had it. It was my insurance policy. If he tried to cut a deal, if he tried to wiggle out, then I would mail it. But for now, the confession regarding Vanessa and the embezzlement was enough to put him away for a few years. I walked out of the office. The rain had started again. I got into my car. I had destroyed my husband. I had dismantled my marriage. I was alone. But as I drove home to my house to sleep in my bed, I realized something. I wasn't lonely. I was spacious. I had cleared out the clutter. But the story wasn't over, because Vanessa King was still out there. She had run from the restaurant. She knew I had the recording, and a cornered rat bites. My phone buzzed as I pulled into the driveway. Unknown number. I answered. You think you won? Vanessa's voice hissed. She sounded unhinged. You think you can just record me and ruin my life? I think I already did, I said, unlocking my front door. I know where you live, Alara, she threatened. I know the codes. Marcus told me everything. The alarm code, the safe code, everything. Is that a threat, Vanessa? It's a promise. You took my future. I'm coming to take yours. Click. I stood in the foyer of my dark, empty mansion. Big Mike was asleep in the guest wing. I walked over to the alarm panel. System disarmed. Marcus had told her the code. She could walk right in. I smiled. I rearmed the system, but I changed the code to the date I filed for divorce 3 years ago, the date I should have left him. Let her come. I walked into the kitchen. I poured a glass of wine. Part 5 was going to be a home invasion. But Vanessa didn't know that I specialized in staging, and I was about to set the stage for a horror movie. The silence in my house was not empty. It was heavy, pregnant, with the anticipation of violence. I stood in the darkened kitchen, the only light coming from the digital display of the microwave, and the occasional flash of lightning through the French doors. I had poured a glass of wine, but I hadn't taken a sip. My senses were tuned to a frequency of danger I hadn't accessed since I was a young woman walking home alone at night in the city. Vanessa King was coming. She had promised it, and desperation makes people keep promises that sanity would otherwise break. She thought she was walking into the home of a spurned wife, a fragile woman crumbling under the weight of betrayal. She didn't realize she was walking into a stage set designed by a woman who made a living creating illusions. I checked the security panel one last time. System armed, silent mode. I had changed the code, yes, but I hadn't set it to trigger the sirens immediately. I wanted her inside. I wanted her to commit to the act. Burglary, home invasion, attempted assault. If she stood on the porch and yelled, it was just harassment. If she crossed the threshold with a weapon, it was a felony that would ensure she never touched a financial portfolio or freedom again. I picked up my phone and texted Big Mike, who was sleeping in the guest wing on the other side of the house. Me, she's coming. Wait for my signal. Do not engage until she is inside. Copy that, boss. Brutus is ready. I walked into the living room. I didn't hide. I sat in the high-backed velvet armchair facing the foyer. I placed the Smith & Wesson 38 Special on the side table, covering it with a silk napkin. I wasn't a killer, but I was a woman protecting her castle. And the law in Georgia was very clear about the rights of the queen. 20 minutes later, I saw the headlights. A car cut its lights at the end of the driveway and rolled to a stop near the hedges. It wasn't the red Audi, I had repoed that. It was a dark sedan, likely a rental or an Uber she had hijacked. A figure emerged from the rain. She was wearing a dark hoodie, moving quickly, keeping to the shadows. I watched her approach the front door. She paused. She punched a code into the keypad lock. Beep, 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 beep. It flashed red. Access denied. I saw her shoulders tense. She tried again. Red. She kicked the door. A muted thud. She moved to the side of the house. She was going for the window in the study, the one with the latch that always stuck. Marcus would have told her about that. He probably complained about the draft it caused while they were lying in bed planning my demise. I heard the squeak of the window sliding up. She was in. I waited. I breathed. I heard her footsteps on the hardwood floor of the study, then the hallway. She was moving toward the living room, toward the master stairs. She had a flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. "Alara," she hissed. "I know you're here. Come out." She stepped into the living room. The beam of her flashlight swung around, illuminating the stacked boxes of linens, the shrouded furniture. It looked like a graveyard of memories. Then the beam hit me. I sat perfectly still, my hands folded in my lap, my legs crossed. I didn't blink in the harsh light. "Hello, Vanessa," I said. "You're late. I expected you 20 minutes ago." Vanessa lowered the light slightly, aiming it at my chest. In her other hand, she held a crowbar. It was rusted, jagged, a tool for breaking bones. "You ruined me," she screamed, her voice echoing off the high ceilings. She looked deranged. Her hair was wet and matted, her makeup smeared. The sleek, arrogant financial advisor was gone. In her place was a feral animal cornered by her own greed. "They froze my accounts. The bank locked me out. I can't even buy gas." "That tends to happen when the FBI flags you for money laundering," I said calmly. "It's a standard protocol. You should know that. You passed the Series 7 exam, didn't you?" "Shut up!" She lunged forward, swinging the crowbar. It smashed into a vase on a pedestal, shattering it into 1,000 shards. "Give me the money. I know you have it. Marcus said there was cash in the safe." "Marcus lied," I said. "Marcus lies about everything. Didn't you learn that when he told you he was going to leave his wife?" "He loved me," she shrieked. "We were going to be happy. We were going to live in Mallorca. You were going to live in a rented condo paid for with stolen equity until the money ran out," I corrected. "And then he would have found a new Vanessa. You were just a layover, honey, not the destination." She roared, a sound of pure frustration, and raised the crowbar again. She took a step toward me. "I'm going to beat the code out of you," she snarled. "I'm going to make you transfer it back." "Vanessa," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "Look to your left." She paused. She looked. Standing in the shadows of the dining room archway was Big Mike. He was 6'4", 300 pounds of muscle, holding a baseball bat like it was a toothpick. And next to him, silent and still, was Brutus. The Rottweiler's eyes reflected the flashlight beam, glowing green. A low growl started in his throat, a vibration that I could feel in the floorboards. Vanessa froze. The crowbar wavered in her hand. "Drop it," Mike rumbled. His voice was deep, calm, and terrifying. "Stay back." Vanessa yelled, swinging the light between me and Mike. I'll kill her! I swear! You're not killing anyone, I said. I reached under the napkin and picked up the revolver. I didn't point it at her. I just set it on my lap, visible. You brought a crowbar to a gunfight, Vanessa, and you brought an ego to a fortress. She looked at the gun. She looked at Mike. She looked at the dog. The fight went out of her. Her shoulders slumped. The crowbar clattered to the floor. Why, she sobbed, sinking to her knees. Why did you have to take it all? You have everything, the house, the business. Why couldn't you let us have the money? Because it was mine, I said, standing up. I earned it, I built it, and I don't share my harvest with the locusts. I pulled out my phone. I tapped the screen. The silent alarm disengaged and the sirens began to wail. Loud, piercing, deafening. Mike, I shouted over the noise. Hold her until the police get here. They're already at the gate. I had called them the moment I saw her car. Mike stepped forward, zip-tying her hands behind her back with a practiced efficiency. Vanessa didn't fight. She just wept, rocking back and forth on my Persian rug. I walked to the kitchen and poured my wine down the sink. I didn't want it anymore. The taste of victory was sweet enough. The next few months were a blur of legal proceedings, depositions, and headlines. The scandal of the Deacon and the Advisor was the talk of Atlanta. It was salacious, it was messy, and it was everywhere. Marcus pled guilty. He had no choice. Between my recording, the confession note, and the financial trail I had handed to the FBI, he was buried. He took a plea deal for 5 years in federal prison for wire fraud and conspiracy. He tried to reach out to me from jail, letters, calls, but I never answered. He was a ghost to me now. Vanessa didn't get off so easy. The investigation into her side hustle revealed she had defrauded 12 other clients, mostly elderly widows. She was looking at 15 years. The future Mrs. hashtag on her engagement photo aged like milk. As for me, I was busy. The divorce was finalized in record time. Since Marcus was incarcerated and had signed over his assets in the refinancing debacle, there was nothing to fight over. I got the house, I got the accounts, I got the business, but I didn't keep the house. I couldn't live there anymore. The ghost of the affair was in the drywall. I sold the estate to a tech billionaire from Silicon Valley for a ridiculous profit. I used the money to expand. 6 months after the break-in, I stood in the elevator of the Ritz-Carlton watching the numbers climb. 30, 40, 50. The doors opened onto the penthouse. It was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the entire city of Atlanta. The space was massive, open, and filled with potential. I wasn't here to stage it. I walked into the living room. My team was already there. Big Mike was directing the movers. My assistant, a sharp young woman named Chloe, was organizing the swatches. Miss St. James, Chloe said, handing me a tablet. The new branding proofs are ready for your approval. I looked at the screen. St. James & Co., luxury design and asset management. I smiled. I had dropped the interiors. I was doing more than just pillows now. I had launched a new division of the company dedicated to forensic auditing for high net worth divorces. I helped women find the money their husbands hid. It was a niche market and business was booming. It looks perfect, Chloe, I said. Print it. I walked to the window. I looked out at the skyline. Somewhere down there, in a concrete cell, Marcus was waking up to a metal toilet and a regimented breakfast. I took a deep breath. The air up here was thin, rare, and clean. Miss St. James? A voice came from the entryway. I turned. A man was standing there. He was tall, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than my first car. He had kind eyes and a strong jaw. I'm sorry to interrupt, he said. The concierge let me up. I'm Julian Thorne. I bought the unit below this one. Mr. Thorne, I said, extending my hand. Alara St. James, are you here to complain about the noise? We're moving furniture. No, he smiled, and it was a genuine smile, not a salesman's grin. I'm here because I heard the woman designing this unit is a genius. I have a villa in Tuscany that needs a complete overhaul. I was hoping I could persuade you to take the job. Tuscany. I thought about the vow renewal, the lie, but then I looked at Julian Thorne. I saw respect in his eyes. I saw interest. Tuscany is beautiful this time of year, I said. It is, he agreed, but it needs a vision. It needs someone who knows how to build something that lasts. I touched the emerald ring on my right hand, a gift I had bought myself with the proceeds from the sale of Marcus's watch collection. I'm very expensive, Mr. Thorne. I said. Quality always is, he replied. I checked my watch. I had a meeting with the district attorney in an hour to finalize my testimony against Vanessa. I had a site visit at a Buckhead mansion at 3, and I had a dinner reservation for 1 at the best steakhouse in the city. My life was full. My life was mine. Call my office on Monday, I said, handing him my new card. We can discuss the retainer. I look forward to it, he said. He walked out. I turned back to the window. The sun was setting, painting the city in gold and violet. I wasn't just a survivor of a bad marriage. I was the architect of a new empire. I had taken the wreckage of my past and built a skyscraper. Mike, I called out. Yeah, boss? Mike shouted from the kitchen. Open the champagne, I said. The good stuff, the Opus 1. What are we celebrating? I looked at my reflection in the glass. I looked younger than I had in years. The worry lines were gone. The weight was gone. We're celebrating the demolition, I said, and the grand opening. I wasn't done. I was just getting started. There were thousands of women out there who didn't know where the money was hidden, and I was going to help them find it. I took the glass Mike handed me. I raised it to the city. To precision, I whispered. I drank. It tasted like freedom.